second. Hey, what's up, everyone? We're live once again with Why We Roll, the tabletop game design podcast from the Stillfleet studio. I'm one of the two hosts of the show. My name is Chris. You can say
Wythe
my name, I'll say
Marschall.
yours. Yeah, exactly. And your
Yeah,
name
Wythe
is
Marschall.
Christopher
I thought
Pickett.
you were going to say mine.
I don't know.
Fuck.
I fucked that up. Hey, Chris, how's it going, man? How you doing?
It's going great. How are you, Wythe?
Awesome, awesome. I'm really excited. We have on someone who I really admire and I always enjoy talking to, but we've not had on the show, and is also a mysterious character. So if you were watching on the stream or watching this on YouTube, you will not see their face. This is like an MF Doom like thing. You will see a cool, unique symbol, and we will discuss with our guest artist, what that's about. Also in the chat, Vex, what's up? Hex of Hexagon, Vet Shot Blanc. Our guest today is HODAG RPG. HODAG, what is up?
What's up, everybody? It's me, Hot Dog. I'm here. I'm on the stream. I need to get an MF Doom style mask. That's the solution here. I have glasses, so I'll have to incorporate that somehow. But maybe I'll get some cool like Captain Cold glasses from the old Flash comics. With like just like the
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
like Inuit style like glasses where they can see across the tundra.
It polarizes the
Uh-huh.
light that reflects off the snow, I think.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what it
yeah,
sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah. It would be on brand for me, being from the north. So I think that would be not that far north, but
That's
I
right.
think
Yeah.
it would tie in thematically, right? So no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
hey, it's a pleasure to be here. I didn't know we were allowed to swear on here, so let me just say straight up, frosted nuts, my favorite swear word. So
That's I really
but
love now I'm picturing Hodag, you're in like a who's the bad guy in Adventure Time, the Ice King or whatever? Like
The Ice
oh
King, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
I
just like
pictured you lived in like a small town in the Midwest, but now I'm picturing just a shard of ice a mile high and you're on top with a little studio just drawing stuff.
I'm coming at you live from Mr. Freeze's thing from Batman and Robin, where
Yeah.
I'm having I'm Mr. Icicle, I'm Mr.
Yeah.
Snow. I've got the goons. I froze Batman and Robin. I've got the Bat credit card. I'm going wild with it. So yeah, no, it's no, no, no. I just I live in a very small Midwestern town currently. I'm from larger Midwestern towns and smaller Midwestern towns. So yeah, it's uh, yeah, I don't know. It's I wish I had a secret lair. I do when I send things out though. It's very funny. My local post office are like, "What is going on with this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's Hodag
Who
World
is this?
Headquarters on all of my mail." And so they're just like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm chilling."
You're trying it out, yeah.
So
The Monster
yeah,
Island's ours.
You're
Well,
chill.
I know
You're
we
chilling.
we brought you on the show to talk about weird Midwest shit to for 5% of the reason, but I'd say 95% is your amazing OSR and NSR and whatever you want to call it, tabletop innovation and just fun having with art, with design. So before we get any further, Hodak, do you just want to introduce yourself? And you can say whatever you want. You can talk about the Midwest. You can talk about RPGs. We're going to ask you mostly about RPGs, but I don't know. Chris, maybe Chris is a wild card. Who knows? So,
I feel like there's a strong case for talking about the intersections of Midwest culture and tabletop role playing games. It's arguably where
it's
the industry got its start in a lot of ways. Not entirely, but in some ways. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I was actually born about what God about an hour away from the birthplace of D&D. So I was born in Racine, which is between Milwaukee and Chicago. So I'm like my family on my dad's side is from, and also I have some relatives there from my mom's side of the family too. But they so I was born in the Chicagoland part of Wisconsin. So it's kind of like a very bizarre thing, but yeah, it's Racine's about an hour away from Lake Geneva. So and it was I was born in the mid '80s, so shortly after the explosion. That wasn't the same time, but it was I just celebrated my 40th birthday. So but yeah, I mean the Midwest growing up. it was kind of like you would still talk to people and be like, oh yeah, like I knew those, I was in that area around that time, but I didn't come into role playing until the year 2000. So it was kind of a fun thing that way to come in, when I was 15. But role playing games as we know them now were, just what, 25 years old at that point, or 20 years. It was very kind of auspicious to come in, a little bit into the thing. But when you're 15 years old, I don't think there's anything better than discovering, at that point in time, Dungeons and Dragons, and then like, is there more of this? Oh my gosh, there's Star Wars. Oh my gosh, there's just a panoply of different stuff that you could get into. So I got really into role playing games immediately. Like the first time I did it, I was absolutely hooked. And then yeah, and I've been drawing my whole life. My back's history is just kind of, I'm a failed sequential artist. I wanted to draw comics, and then I had unfortunately, I was well into my 30s when I had this epiphany. But the epiphany is that I don't want to draw comic books. I want to draw superheroes. And you can still draw superheroes. But I was like, well, what am I going to do with my art skills? I'm going to be drawing anyways. It's a passion of mine. It's what I do. So I was like, which sounds very cheesy, but, that's a kind of person I am. So I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, well, there's always illustration, right? And I had already, made my own role-playing games with my friends. And HODAG was written in 2013. And this was like way before... like 2018, 2019 is kind of when I had this like realization that I didn't want to be a sequential artist. And also I don't know how to use computers. I'm a Luddite. So I was like, and everything is like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I could break into the comic book industry in 1953, with the way that I was doing things. But, now you had to basically know how to do the, various digital realm stuff. So I was like, I pivoted and I was like, black and white style artwork. Like I'm not a colorist. I'm, a penciler and inker, or, as how I viewed myself. And so I was like, well, it was like, black and white art style. I love old school art anyways. Like I love Dave Trampier and Errol Otis, and my favorite artist of all time, third edition, Justine Mara Anderson, who I'm very, very lucky to have contacted and kind of be in contact with. And I jokingly call her Art Mom. I haven't ran that by her. So, don't be like, hey, HODAG said you were Art Mom. But like, sort of in the way that Carrie Fisher is Space Mom, right? So, but it's, she was very influential in sort of my thick line style. But there's this book called the Hero Builder's Guidebook for third edition. And that was one of the first role-playing materials that I got after I bought my PHB, and I got a copy of the Holmes Blue Box at a flea market. And those are like the three seminal texts for me. But this Hero Builder's Guidebook has like, how to do like for third edition. It's like all the different derivations of the races and classes and stuff. But her artwork in there is just so gorgeous and beautiful. And it really made me like always kind of gravitate towards those very character forward illustrations that tell you a lot about the character just from their facial stuff and everything. So sorry, that's an info dump. I got off on a lot of tangents there, but yeah, that's basically the back history of how I came to be 2019, 2020. Actually, I was going to go to GaryCon in 2020. I had tickets and I was going to go on Saturday and make my big splash and start handing out business cards and everything. And obviously that got canceled due to the global pandemic that was happening at the time. And, kind of still is. And so, anyways, but over the course of 2020 and 2021, I started doing my, I did 52 one-page zines, or not all of them were one page. Some of them were larger and some of them were, different. I did one that was a diceless audio game on YouTube. So you can play along as long as you got one hand with 5 digits on it, or any, I guess, armature with 5 digits on it. But as long as you can put a finger down, you should be good to go with that one. So even if you have like, site issues or something like that, like I was like, this would be a cool thing to do. And it was a fun experiment. I want to do more of them, but they're just hard to do. And I've been busy since then. So, but yeah, I released 52 games in 2021. And that's kind of when I made my sort of big splash. Big shout out to Froth Eater and our Thought Eater podcast and Froth. So yeah, it was he was very instrumental in getting me kind of recognition and Ava Islam when I started with I got brought onto the Errant team and that was kind of like where I sort of entered the sort of space, and then from there on in I just started making friends and then getting gigs, and it was awesome, and everything's been pretty awesome since. So
Well, that's quite a lot of awesome. There's a lot of fun things.
Sorry,
What's up, Taylor? No. Please feel free to talk. We might go back. We might jump around
Here.
ourselves.
I hope you were taking notes. There will be a test. I'm not passing out a syllabus.
Yeah, those are the best classes. Oh, yeah, you got it. Chris, do you have questions? We do have questions in the chat. I'm not sure how serious they are, but we may come back to them. But Chris, do you want to follow up on any of the sort of 2020s, I don't know, like old school adjacent art, RPG design and art practices that we've seen kind of HODAG, be one of the people sort of leading, I feel like.
Well, yeah, I was curious. One of the kind of traditional first questions that we ask guests is like, how did you get your start in RPGs? Where did you start playing? All that good stuff. And you said started in 2000, age 15. I'm assuming with indie there. But what, can you walk us through like what it looks like going from being a player in the early 2000s and then moving into like, all the confusion of that time to the 2010s. How am I trying to frame this? Outside of art, with designing games, like what does that kind of journey look like for you? Like, how did you get to the point where you were releasing so many games in one year and designing on top of, doing illustration for the project?
It's always been my goal to put up Jordan numbers no matter what I'm doing. Like, I just want to be the very best, like no one ever was, and it's I say that I'm half joking, but no, I mean, it's just an innate desire to make, and I feel blessed that I had that sequential art background because you learn to work very fast, and so it doesn't even matter. And also too, a lot of the stuff that I do is just filing the serial numbers off stuff that I like and then releasing it and being like, hey, haha, isn't this fun? You see what I'm doing here? But then also too, it's like, haha, so I'm avoiding copyright law by doing parody. And so it's, one of those things where it's like, it's pretty easy to do if you're doing Ghostbusters and Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and Masters of the Universe and Batman and I'm a big DC Comics fan, so a lot of my stuff is more DC pilled and Justice League tinge. But yeah, I guess I've just always been a maker ever since I was a kid. I grew up dirt poor and which was great training for being an adult that's also dirt poor. But I used to make my own like action figure playsets. Like I really wanted a Jabba the Hutt's Palace playset, and I never had the, I had cousins that had them from the 80s, the early 80s, and I was like, this is so cool. So I would make them out of like cardboard boxes, and then I would draw Jabba the Hutt, and I figured out how to make like a slit in the cardboard to like put a tab Jabba the Hutt on the pedestal. I could just do it 2D, and then I would have a diorama. And so I was like, as a kid, I was like, okay, I'll bust out the colored pencils and the, whatever, and I can make my own. And it's actually better to make your own because then you have that customizable, aspect to it where it's like, okay, I can innovate this or I can do that. And unfortunately, I mean, my skill level wouldn't always match up my grand designs for that. And that's been the case for 40 years. But my, sort of thing is like, I just have that whatever it is inside of you, that fire that burns. But it's like, it's like I've got to be. It's probably some kind of unregulated sort of neurodivergence, but I have to be working on something. And even if I'm washing the dishes or mowing the lawn or doing whatever, my brain's always overclocked in that way where I'm creating. And art is an access as an event for me to kind of spill that out. And I always say that, like, I'm kind of like the Flash, where when I draw, it's just kind of like I tap into the Speed Force, and it just kind of spills out onto the page. And so, unless I'm doing something very technical where there's a lot of like, like this has to look like this, and this is supposed to be over here, and whatever. And I always get frustrated with that, but that's a me problem. Like, that's just the illustration game. Like, sometimes you're going to get projects where it's like very confining, and that's just something that I have to deal with as an adult person. But yeah, so does that answer your question? I guess I just have the innate want and yeah, the gears inside me sort of turn. But going backwards, if we're talking about kind of like how I get here, it's I just really like role-playing games. They've always appealed to me so much more than video games. Video games are fun, but like I like a lot of video games that are fighting games or first-person shooter games, usually with like Batman or Star Wars in the title. But like it's just one of those things where it's kind of like something that's I can pick up easily. Sometimes I'll play Grand Theft Auto for 15 or 20 minutes, and then that's all I got to go do something else. I can't. Video games are too constrictive for me. With role-playing games, it's like this whole world is just and it's like the old, I've always been more of a person who's like, where are the boundaries in here? How can I put bumpers up on this, bowling alley to make sure that the ball goes where it needs to as a designer? But, it also is wonderful that people are going to break your games immediately, no matter what. So it's kind of like that's that sort of frustrating but also exciting thing about putting up guardrails and having these high walls that people are going to try to scale is like so fun to me as a designer. But then also as a player, it's fun to be like, where are the limits here? Where are we going? When do we go into the neutral zone? When are we out of Federation space? So
yeah, I love the idea of some of the joys of different kinds of games and just returning to different media and remixing them. We talk about that on the show all the time, so it's fun to see like hear some of the things that pop into your head as like major influences. I feel like Batman has already come up a possibly legally actionable number of times, which is great. And I think it's interesting how our brains are like molded by these stories that we tell again and again, kind of myths. But yeah, I also think RPGs are just kind of more fun, even if video games are fun. They're just very different. I feel like video games is like like you said, you kind of pick it up, play it, and you're like, that was satisfying. In the same way, like when I do the dishes, it's like, yeah, I did a thing. Whereas RPGs is like your friends and you were like, yeah, arguing about whether, as Vex said, is this a rocket launcher that for a horse to use or a rocket launcher for a train to use or some, like you're just saying wild shit. The invention is so like, it's infectious. So they're just kind of different modes. Can you tell us a little, to pick up on the kind of early influences, like when you started making games, like what that meant to you? And we often hear, well, I was the forever GM. My friends wanted a certain experience. I was kind of designing for that. But HODAG, do you have any memories of like, how you specifically approached that? And I guess to lead into it a little bit, I feel like I think of you primarily in this space as like somebody who's illustrating a lot. So were you always like, oh, I'm illustrating, or was it, forgive me if I'm wrong, is it more that you think of yourself primarily as a game designer who happens to be a really good artist? So, were you drawing for your friends and somebody's like, hey, I'd pay for that? As you said, you kind of like went out and sought that as like a career opportunity. But yeah, how'd you kind of get into both those halves? Was it, the same time, different time? How'd that work?
I think of myself as an influencer first. My horrendous takes, or late at night. I'm a night person, and so people will wake up to these really bad, lukewarm or subtweeting takes, and that's primarily what I'm. Yeah, I'm here to make friends. No, I'm half joking about that. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess I view myself as an artist, and I guess creator. I don't know. The word salad around what we're actually doing here is pretty wild. it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I guess I view myself as an artist. I guess I primarily would say I'm an illustrator more so than a game designer, because like a lot of my games are a goof. And a quick side note, I'm not even that big of a Batman fan. I like Batman quite a bit, but I'm like Justice League, Aquaman, Booster Gold, Jay Garrick, Flash, Starman guy. But like just for the record, I just thought I'd correct it. But like yeah, I guess I view myself as an illustrator first, if I had to choose, if there was like a drop down menu. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I kind of just view myself as a person in the space first, and then kind of, illustrator, a rock on tour, if I were a Jack White style guy. I don't know. I guess I just happy to be here and happy to have friends. So you can call me what you want, but
no,
just
you should be a rapper. You're like the Michael Jordan influencer raconteur of illustration and game. It's great. No, it's really great.
One of my
so
favorite
bars
things
already.
I was like one of my recent gags was that I was voted the MVP at the Emmys, the most ballingest player, because I won 3 silver Emmys this year. Well, 2.5. Birdman. I did some illustrations for Birdman's blog, Prismatic Wasteland, and yeah, that was fun. But yeah, it was I won. I got to be part of the silver for best game for His Majesty the Worm, and then also Yaziba's Bed and Breakfast for best silver for best family game. So which was awesome. So it was really fun to be part of this project. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I was voted the MVP, the most ballingest player. And they were like, what are you doing? Why are you? And I was like, listen, I grew up during, the time period that I grew up during, the early 2000s. A lot of the sort of like, it was this weird, like the last of the rock era, the beginning of like sort of the rap and hip hop mainstream era, where it kind of bleeds over. Not to go full Anthony Fantano, sort of professor of rock on you guys. But like, so a lot of the stuff that was in the turn of the millennium culture. So I'm like, we need to bring back like, fun turn of the millennium stuff, so I try to sprinkle my phrases with, or, sprinkle my language with like stuff that we used to say that was fun and less stuff that we used to say that was bad. Because there was a lot of bad stuff that we don't say anymore that was floating around back then, which is good.
There was so much.
I was trying to explain to a younger person that I was having a conversation with, and I was like, listen, they had to do PSAs to get us to stop. Like when Glee was on, Jane Lynch, God bless her, came on and said, please don't say the R word anymore. Her and Johnny Knoxville. And it was there were public PSAs in like 2012 that were like, hey, we probably shouldn't be using this ableist language anymore. And people do not believe me. You can look it up on YouTube. They're there. So yeah, it's wild. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like I really enjoyed that time period, and obviously like, that was a very formative time for me. So it's always like fun to go back and be like, listening to Blue Cantrell or anything that was on, top 40 stuff in the thing. But I think we need to bring that back. I know the Y2K stuff is kind of having a moment, or was having a moment in the last few years. Yeah, so I say we.
Well, I mean, this is slightly unrelated, but there are a lot of GD that are bringing back Y2K style, and in particular, my partner's little cousin, who's like 16, was staying with us like a month or two ago, and she was dressing like it was 2001, and I had this moment where I was like, oh, this is how my father felt when everybody was dressing like it was the late 60s, early 70s, and the late 90s. Because I remember him being so confused and being like, why is this? Why are you bringing back bell bottoms? Why is this happening? And I felt the same way about like the low-rise jeans that I saw this person wearing. No judgment, but I was just confused.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's pockets that you can't put anything. The women's, women's fashion, or fashion that was, I guess,
it was rough.
Aimed at women, yeah, with the low-rise hip hugger stuff, and I'm like, I don't think that was comfortable for anybody. So it's just. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff back there that was, it was kind of fun. And also it's like, I've been listening to a lot of, going back and listening to a lot of stuff that I might have missed. I'm trying to get my physical media in order and uploaded and put onto my computer and stuff, because I'm really kind of skeeved out about Spotify's current, kind of trajectory with
Sure.
like the
Yeah, yeah.
the bad money flow. I mean, I guess we live in the torment nexus now, so that's kind of like the to mishmash four different things into one. But like, so I'm like, while I'm here, while I'm paying for the service, I will, so I'm like going back and like listening to a lot of stuff from that era. And it's just kind of like, so I don't know, it's so weird to like go back and like think about like, it's like this dropped in like, 2001 or 2002 or any of that stuff. And it was just like, and, most recently we just went past September 11th, and it was like, you look at all the stuff that came out that day, because someone was talking about it, and you're like, just how many great albums dropped on September 11th, 2001. And it was like, I was just like, there's like a whole listicle about it. And I was just like, I'm going to check some of these out just to see what they're, because like I missed some of them, and it was just like very weird, the beginning of the unprecedented times that us elder millennials have continued to live through. And it's like, it's wild. So.
Is there any reflection of I don't want to call it nostalgia. I'm kind of icked out by that word these days, but the reflection on the early 2000s, does that show up in your game work anywhere? Can we see like a 3rd edition reskin by HODAG coming out soon, like early Pathfinder 1st edition reskin?
I think that listen, if I was even a fourth as smart as Monty Cook or Skip Williams III or any of those people that worked on 3E, where you get paid for making the same game 4 times, I'm like, that is genius. But the no, I mean, like I've always been reinventing 3rd edition in my head. I have always been there ever since I was younger and didn't fully understand how the rules for 3rd edition worked. I'm like, there's got to be a simpler way. It blew my mind when I was playing DCC for the first time last year, where I was like, excuse me, where I was like, oh my gosh, they did it. They literally did that thing that, like, I always described my artwork as Y2K meets BX. And they did it.
I can see that.
They did it in book form. But like, it's like, it's me. So it's me just basically doing old school art, but everybody's got like 90s style Rob Liefeld, like pockets and gear on their, person. Or, it's like a lot of like my influences are the LJN Dungeons and Dragons line, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, something where it's like, how do we like simplify this down to easily readable? This is a thief. This is a paladin. This is an arcanist. This is whatever. And so, I mean, but I'm always trying to do that. And I just came up with a couple of things. I've got like a 1d20 rollover system that I'm working on that right now on my blog, which I skimmed on it the last week because I was like doing stuff because I was trying to get this the Kingdomites what do you call it, zine that I was doing, which I'm also trying to avoid itch now because of their bad policies. But I'm still gonna put things up itch on as an archive. But I was like, if I make a zine, I was like, what if I could just take the orders myself and then just shoot it to people? What if I could just like, they would tell me, they're like, yes, I'm interested in this product. Then they send me an email, and then I say, hey, here's my PayPal, give me $20, I will send you these 3 zines that I made. And then they say, okay, yes, and then I send them the PDFs for it. You know what I mean? So it's like, can we do that on a larger scale? I know some other people are like looking at itch alternatives. I absolutely hate drive-through RPG the way that it's laid out. As a mobile user, I feel oppressed. And an Android mobile user, I feel oppressed by drive-through RPG's mobile app or mobile site. So it's kind of like, how do we do this? But anyway, so I was working on the Kingdom. I made this 1-page zine in 2021 going back called Kingdomites of Techno Skull Island. We all know that I'm doing He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and Princess
yeah.
Guinevere and the Jewel Riders, and Thundercats. I'm it's barbarian laser fantasy, right? And so I was like, I want to do more of that because like I haven't done that in a while. And I was like, and usually that gets both my sci-fi people and my fantasy people excited because that's what it is. And I'm like, this is a good idea. So I did three different zines. The main zine just has the sort of 2d6 rollover system that I created, which I'm very proud of. That system's great. And I'm still working out kinks, and I want to do hyper trench with it in the near future. And I want to do. There's a couple other ones that I want to kind of incorporate into that while I'm playing around with the 2d6 rollover system. But like in that sort of milieu, I on my blog, I'm doing the thing for my D20 rollover system, which is sort of like a meditation on third edition, but it has a lot of elements of other things. And there's, I don't know, like 40 or 50 different classes that you can be. And I think a very like solid selection of kind of different dwarves, elves, humans, and burrowers that you can be. But like I have all the traditional third edition trappings that you would imagine, plus a few other ones that I think are kind of missing from that group because you should be able to play a leprechaun in every game. But yeah, so that's basically what I've been doing. But yeah, I'm always reinventing third edition. I feel like that was a prison that I am trapped in, but I'm happy to be prisoned in there. I threw away the key myself, So God, I sound like a person like walking around, like the absent-minded professor just lecturing their class or something like that. But yeah.
No. I think. I mean, obviously, one of the reasons to have you on is you work on a lot of projects. So you have a lot of ideas, and you have. I think one thing to differentiate is you have like two kinds. You have like the HODAG extended universe, which is this whole world in your head that's come out as zines and as pieces on your blog. And as you said, you're adapting, and we all are thinking about, man, DTRPG sucks, but itch now is like openly censoring people, and like, man, what do we do? Do we go back to blogs? We've talked about, do we focus on a Substack or a Patreon, right? And like Patreon's money, but like not everyone can afford it, and like it's very clunky, frankly. Maybe email newsletters, so there's all these questions of like, if you have that impulse to like constantly write little chunks and draw, especially if you can do both, how do you get that out there to an audience? And then, like you said, how do you monetize it? Not in a mean way, but like to pay your bills. Like, how do you say, okay, if you like a zine, I'll send you a zine, give me your address, right? Give me some money, I'll send you the stuff. And I think it's interesting to hear different people's approaches. And I think that's one practice. And then at the same time, you're also illustrating a lot of other people's work. You mentioned the ENnie award-winning work, but you've also illustrated, like, you've done illustrations for Stillfleet, I should say. Now you and I have worked on a game together that's just coming out. So it's like, it's fun because you work on like, I'm guessing like 100 projects a year, which are sort of variations on, as you said, third edition over and over again. Or I think a lot of people who hire you are doing like first edition over and over again. And then we're doing not that, and like Laurie O'Connell is doing not that, right? So I think you've worked with like kind of the gamut, actually. Now that I say that out loud, of kind of quote unquote the OSR and the NSR, and just right in between is you're playing third edition, right? It's like you and Monty Cook.
Right, yeah. Why Y2K meets BX? I mean, that says it all, buddy. We're there. But yeah, I cannot say enough good things about working with you, and then also you mentioned Laurie. Let's just go ahead and say it.
We love Laurie.
12 Pin Express, the best. Like, I mean, literally, Death Game was one of the most fun. That and you meet in a tavern, you die in a dungeon, or so do you say? Well, I'm probably saying that wrong. But the you meet in a tavern, you die in a dungeon was also so fun. Where I got to work with Jean Verne, who's wonderful. Got to work with Lori and Tanya and Wendy and all the people that I got to work with on Death Game, and that was so fun. And Death Game has like all of my games have like little stuff like thrown in there, but like the peak one that I did was for Death Game was. It's these gladiators fighting in an arena that's based off of Cops Burgers in Milwaukee, and all of the combatants are these like sort of like 1960s Barbarella style like gladiators, but they've all got different Wisconsin counties on them on their sashes. And so there's like Oconomowoc and or no, maybe it's cities, but it was like Oconomowoc, Waukesha, like all of these like Sheboygan in the background where I'm I claim is home. But like it's yeah, so it's like it was super fun to do that in Death Game. And there's an illustration where it's like I just got to hide a bunch of stuff because it was like fight to the death in like a comic convention, and so it's like the O'Connell Convention Center named after Lori, and then there was like stuff, the comics spilled all over the ground with just like goofy stuff on them. So that was super super fun. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, I love working on other people's projects, and it's hard for me to say no when it's like literally it's like there's this old six Doctor Who quote that's what was it? Rest is for the weary, sleep is for the dead. But I'm like a hungry man set before a feast, and I feel that deep inside me, where it's like how do you say no to these projects, because there are so many people doing so much dynamic work right now, and they want me to be part of it. I'm willing to lose a little bit of sleep to get there. You know what I mean? Like it's good. And I don't know. I'm so thankful and happy to be part of this community, and thankful and happy that I keep getting work because I got bills. I'm an adult, and it's great. It's wonderful that I get to participate in this. But yeah, I mean, it was so much fun, and I had a blast doing the Stillfleet stuff, and I really had a blast about. Are we legally cleared to talk about it? Can we talk about it?
Yeah. We can announce PICARO. That's kind of one reason to do this episode tonight. But yeah, no, that's awesome, and I'm so glad. And again, feel free to shout out all your work. And I'm a big fan, of Death Game. Obviously, His Majesty the Worm, and all these. There's many games that you mentioned already that are like just excellent. So it's so cool that you've gotten your specific style of kind of somewhat comic inspired, somewhat realistic, black and white, no AI, hand drawn art with very expressive faces. I think is one of the reasons. I was just thinking like, there are a lot of illustrators who are talented. So what is the HODAG look? What is the HODAG feel? And I think a lot of it is you capture a lot of moments into science fantasy kind of context of surprise, of people being like, what, a goblin, what, a grenade, and it's very joyful, and it adds a lot of kinetic energy to the page and layout when you're working on a project. So similarly, it's fun to work with you because it's kind of like there, in terms of art direction, it's like, yeah, just go, just read it and return something, and I know that it'll be kind of kinetic and vivid and weird. So it's always going to be different every project, but it's fun to have collaborators like we have. Of course, it's so awesome working with and being able to work basically every day with Chris and the team we put together here in New York. But HODAG, it's nice to have a mystery a person who I don't even know what you look like, but just a mystery person
F Doom
somewhere out in the greater Midwest.
That would be so awesome. No, I look like the Ox King from the Dragon Ball cartoon.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I there's a little bit of demystifying there. I did when I released my bio sort of comic weird zine that I did for my 40th. You can literally see me, all of my incarnations on there, and drawn by me, of course. But it's funny. I was like, I'm 6'4", well over 4 bills, so I'm a big guy. Like I kind of have the same body type as Big Van Vader. And so it's kind of like, well, I guess ideally, I'm not as, I need to start hitting the gym a little bit more, but I'm chained to my art desk. So what are you going to do? But like, it's a situation where, I don't know. It's like the expressive faces and stuff like that. When it comes to, that is just comes from reading comics. Kevin McGuire, who did like the Justice League International stuff, and the different, the way that he used to draw faces. I think I learned a lot from reading a lot of Golden Age comics, where they would have very sort of expressive style faces in those comics, where if you read Action Comics #1, or even the cover of it, there's the guy running from Superman smashing the car, and you can tell the sort of grief and shock and surprise on his face. And so reading a lot of like older comics when I was growing up, I feel like kind of really shaped that. Obviously, comic style Alex Ross, and then ergo Andrew Loomis, via those sort of pathways. And then also art that I don't like also influenced a lot of stuff where, it's like your John Romita Jr.'s, who I absolutely hate. Or, your John Byrne, who draws the same face on every single person. He has one female face, one male face. And, the rest of his artwork is gorgeous, but it's just one face the whole time. And it's like, I didn't want to do that with my art. So that's kind of where that comes from. And then also, too, again, like I think having Justine Mara Anderson having those very pensive or sort of like snapshot frame portraits, snapshot in time from the Hero Builder's Guidebook really like wired my brain in such a way where I'm like, this person is thinking deeply about something. This person is angry. This person is excited. This person is going about their day and has a neutral look on their face. Got me thinking about how do you do that,
Yeah, so maybe we can talk a little about the specific process for PICARO. Before we do that, we can maybe say what PICARO is, and just let people know that the game exists, and that it's all illustrated by HODAG. So we collaborated. It's a game I wrote and HODAG you illustrated, and right now it is going to be part of the RPG Zine Club of +1 XP, with the idea that hopefully we're going to do a book next year at some point. So I think that is a question of kind of time and interest. But one reason to do the zine is to kind of frankly like play test it more with more people, and just also have something fun that is part of a kind of a regular output by a group we really like. I'm a big fan of +1 XP. I think they put out a lot of fun stuff, and they work with a lot of indie creators. So it's nice to bring basically the first grid system game that we're not publishing directly, just letting someone else do all that crap. But yeah, HODAG, it was basically also a nice excuse to just work with you and send you some text. The game is set in the year 1700, and the whole idea is just to do early modern fantasy using the grid system and really focus on the idea of the picaresque, which is kind of in D&D. I think most people play D&D more like a picaresque genre than like an epic, cycle kind of fantasy from like Lord of the Rings, which is coming from like, I don't know, the Poetic Eddas or something. There's dragons, you got to kill dragons, save the land, the kind of Arthurian stuff. I think most people play it as like, you're fucked up little guys murdering other fucked up little guys or just robbing normies. And so we leaned into that and just said, okay, in 1700, the world has gone to shit. It feels a little like it does now. The rich people have completely taken over, everything's gone to shit, and you are a PICARO. You're a criminal of some kind. So there are like elves and dwarves, there is magic, but it's really much more focused on the human, and really the human society. So even if you play an elf, it's the real world, it's a real time and place, and we're encouraging you to rob the rich. And I'm just excited because it's based on basically an earlier game, and it was fun to work on that and just say, okay, let's really take this idea and make it with the grid system and just all HODAG's art, something totally new. So I don't know if you could say, HODAG, in terms of process, what it's like when you get a manuscript, like a Google Doc in this case, and it's just like, here's a bunch of words, here's some ideas for a game, and roughly here's how many illustrations we think will fit. Like, what do you do? How do you do what you do? What do you decide is like, okay, this is going to be this guy's face, this is going to be this scene, what happens?
I try to get like a collection of vibes and also like other media, right? Like, if there's nothing in your tank, your car's not going to go. And so if I on a big project like this, or I've obviously recently I did some stuff for. I promise this will loop back to PICARO, but I did a project, Arcane Sword Press. Absolute shout out Brian, huge fan, definitely one of my homies. But like we did heavy metal, which was mechs for Traveler, right? And so which is awesome. What a great idea. And so I was like, I am going to watch as much. This is last year. I'm going to watch as much mecha stuff that I can get my hands on. So I'm gonna look at Bubblegum Crisis. I'm gonna look at was it like Heavy Gear or whatever? It was I'm trying to remember all of the different ones. I've got a whole list that I went through and watched so I could get a deeper understanding, because I knew about mecha, but like a lot of the stuff that I knew wasn't exactly what we were doing. So I needed to kind of open up my sort of mind's eye to that sort of thing. And so when I got this manuscript, I was like, I think I went back and forth with you a couple of times, like, what is this? What do we do? What, like, what time period? So I can look up clothing and I can look up whatever. And so, and you're like, well, it's kind of this, it's kind of that, it's kind of, set between this time period, the 1600s, 1700s, and if you don't have to stay exactly in this sort of playpen, but this is the general air, this is the dartboard we're shooting for. And so I was like, wow, well, what is my touchstone? And everything clicked into place when I watched Barry Lyndon for the first time. Big shout out Barry Lyndon by probably at this point my favorite Kubrick film, even though 2001 Space Odyssey is still a masterpiece, and Shining's great, but more so a fan of. I'm sorry, what was it?
I was just going to say, yeah, you can't beat 2001 in The Shining, but I mean, I think Barry Lyndon is definitely the sleeper in a lot of ways.
I fell in love with it. I was just like, this is incredible. So I watched Barry Lyndon and I was like, this is going to be my touchstone for where we're going with that. And there's this great piece, shout out me, where I did it for PICARO, where it's the guy with the bomb, and that was the touchstone piece. When that clicked into place, I was like, here we go, this is it. But it's this guy, we're wearing period clothing, and he's got the bomb in his hand, and he's like looking at the fourth wall, looking at the camera, and with a smirk on his face. And I'm like, this is it. This is the one. This is the touchstone piece for what this is. Excuse me. But I also thought a lot about like, early American colonization, where big mistake, honestly, but like I took stuff that I had from like pilgrims and stuff like that, where I was kind of thinking about like all of the sort of like things that were more ribald or bawdy, things that were more kind of like there had to be an air of like, oh, aren't we being saucy today? Kind of a vibe to it. Eating a pie in a hayloft or something. I was trying to come up with like gags, that would be like good for PICARO to kind of give it a, yes, you're going to be robbing, and yes, you might be murdering, and yes, you might be, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, aka yourself, or the other poor. But like it's like there was like a lot of like stuff in there where I was like, okay, and we're going to get to draw little flintlock pistols. We're going to get to draw like carriages, and we're going to get to draw like dogs fighting a guy for a turkey leg, that kind of stuff, where it's like the older illustration style, and I looked at older paintings and stuff like that. So yeah, it was fun. It was a really great thing, but I think my touchstone, I guess, was kind of like when I was thinking about like what they looked like. I guess Barry Lyndon was kind of that thing, but getting that foothold in was important. So.
No, that's interesting. It sounds like the process to kind of repeat it back or proceduralize it or whatever is like you're looking at media and you're thinking about like what's the thing, is it heavy gear for or whatever the metal sort of mecha anime is that gets you excited. Is it Barry Lyndon for the picaresque tradition, and then creating from that like maybe one or two or however many touchstone pieces of your own in your own hand that let you feel that confidence of like I'm nailing it, I know the look, I know the feel, and then from there it's like easy to spin out to expand and do bits because then you did like lots of like busts and like little pieces, little daggers and things like that. But yeah, you're right, there were a few of those kind of full page feeling scenes that were really fun. One of my favorite, which we made a chapter header just because we loved it so much when Gay, my wife, and I were looking at it doing layout, is like you just had like a dog with a human hand in its mouth, and it looks like a happy dog. It's like a greyhound style, like how dogs used to all more or less be sort of working animals, but it just got this hand, and I thought it was such a nice, like, it had nothing to do, it wasn't, a lot of the illustrations, like you said, you had your own ideas for scenes you could imagine the players having, which I thought was great because it's not actually in the text, but it does connect. Like it could be, right? So I think it's interesting to have that kind of frisson or whatever, that like productive tension between like the text is saying one thing and then here's this other scene and your mind has to like grapple with it, but it does make sense. It is of the right, the clothing, everything. It's got, some elves and dwarves. And yeah, I loved it. Also food. I actually really liked that there were I think there was a couple like food related pieces, which feels like not just okay, yeah, everyone eats, but like nowadays most people don't have to be farmers. Back in 1700, you know, the vast majority of people were still farmers. I mean, it's, you know, it's not the medieval, it's capitalism, but it's still like most people are farmers, and food, you know, that's when you're meeting and doing anything, planning a robbery or celebrating a new birth or whatever, right? Like it's all about food. So I thought that was a nice through line, that there's just like dogs and, you know, a pie and an apple, and just kind of like every piece had this liveliness that didn't need to be sort of, that was just like the background, right? Of like, yeah, well, that's how life was, right? It's dirty, it's
Yeah, yeah.
messy, and there's a lot of pretentious assholes who are like, you're not allowed to cuss, you got to read the, but you know, it's like it's all that dissonance that we feel today, but back, you know, with whatever waistcoats and weird hats. So yeah, it came out really nicely, and I look forward to people kind of thumbing through it, and hopefully at PAX. It'll be available at PAX Unplugged. So we're taping on September 15th. It'll be available whenever that is, November 21st. But you can get it, you can pre-order it now. I'll drop the link in the chat if you go to Plus One. I just don't think, I don't know when it would physically ship. I think PAX is when it'll be, you know, available. But yeah.
Yeah, well, to get to your point, you know, kind of, you know, two things come to mind. One, showing the illustrative work. The job of an illustrator is to give you ideas about, to give vibes to the text, right? And so it's kind of like, so yeah, I wasn't going specifically from the text, but yeah, it's like, you know, I think back to third edition. I think back to Wayne Allen Reynolds and Todd Lockwood and all the people that worked on those the third edition books, where it was like, you know, they had the iconic heroes, right? They had Miley and Crust and Tordek and Joven and or Josen and all the other you know, Lita, all of the iconic characters, but they're always doing like they're planning a heist, or they're about to get a big rock thrown on top of their head, or you know,
Yeah.
they're creeped out by a spider, you know, coming down from the rafters.
I'm having like a serious Proustian moment right now where like I'm going back to like my 8th grade self, flipping through the third edition rule book, and like especially when you're like, when they plan a heist, it's like, yes, the exact characters are sitting around a table. One of them, I think the dwarf Torvek or whatever, is like pointing at a map on the table. There's a dagger stuck into the table. It's just so evocative. It's like, even talking about it, I'm having like a
I'm unlocking your memories, yeah. But
yeah, it's wild.
Memories, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, listen, I've probably read through this book 8 million times, and not a single moment was actually reading mechanics. I was just looking at the pictures. But like, I was like, I understand this book. But like, it's like, yeah. So you have that, and then also, sort of like, you know, the way that we talk about, like, you know, how do you express this time period? And you know, I'm not a prude, but I do tend to, all of my stuff is, you know, PG, sometimes up to a PG-13. Just what I put out in the world. It's not, you know, because you know, I have a religious faith that doesn't allow. I did grow up in several. Actually, I belonged to about like every major sect of Protestantism, and also I was baptized Catholic. I was confirmed Lutheran. I was rebaptized in the Post-Apostolic Church. I was part of the Reformation branch of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at one point. So I
one of those super Christians I've heard about.
Yeah, listen, when I get to the pearly gates, they're going to be like, here's your chest full of medals, sir. But I was an acolyte when it was part of the Methodist Church. So you know, it's I got that that experience, which was great. Actually, honestly, it made me really I feel like a person who thought more deeply about the way that sort of like, it's like, okay, what do all these dogmas have in common? And I was like, oh, being chill and being nice to people, that's cool. So, or like, you know, ostensibly. So like, you know, but yeah, it was, it's not, it's just, you know, one of those things where it's like, I tend to, you know, go a little bit softer with my stuff. So I couldn't like, you know, and also too, I didn't think that we wanted to have, you know, anything graphic in the book that was, you know, or, you know, titillating for no reason. So I think the closest thing I got was the, there's this piece that I did where it was based off of The Rock from the 90s, where he's got the turtleneck chain and fanny pack picture. And I don't know why I was like, this would make an incredible, like, I'm gonna change this slightly, but it's going to be, this is inspired by, so it's like a guy standing next to a banister, and he's holding a book that's 1001 Ribald Tales. And I was like, this is incredible. This is the best thing that I've ever made. But I think the book is by H. HODAG, so it's fun. But I was like, how do we show the sort of simple pleasures of life that aren't the sort of like, more salacious ones, right? So
Yeah.
it's like food, right? So it's like food, fun, farts. What would these people that
Yeah.
were sort of on the outskirts of things? Because we want it to be accessible to if again, like going back to the eighth grader thing, like if an eighth grader gets caught reading this book, we don't want him to get popped and put in juvie or anything like that, right? So but yeah, we wanted to kind of show that more fun, simple pleasure type things in the book, and I feel like that was it was with the person who's like drunk in a fountain, and that's a good one. So
yeah, there's a lot of good art, and I want to do more good art, hopefully for an expanded edition, and touch more on, because we also, I mean, I went light when writing this version, when we whittled it down, in terms of this sort of historical valence of like, look, there's people literally being like enslaved at this time, and you can stop it, right? And that's in there, but we don't, it's like it's really a range. You could play it as like D&D, you could play it as like goofing off, like really low stakes, kind of like Coen Brothers Small Town Crooks, which I really like in any setting. Basically, I love sort of that version of the picaresque, which is kind of a modern read on it, but it's very, I think, continuous with Tristram Shandy and Don Quixote, if you think about it, because Quixote has all these epic ambitions, but most of the book is really, really random and small town, no matter what his poetic, or these kind of asides within asides. There's like these long epic poetic stories, but really what's happening is like, him and his sidekick are like hanging out at a tavern. Like there's, what I mean? It's like kind of nothing happening. So I feel like you can play it that way. You could also play it more, oh, this is this historical epic thing. A little bit, Chris, kind of like a Danse Macabre vibe, but obviously very different time and with a different kind of political focus, because it's not, oh, there's a zombie apocalypse, and there is, in fact, magic. It's like, oh, yeah, what if... I also just thought it'd be interesting to try to do a kind of realistic D&D type game where it's like, no, this is actually Earth. We're not... Like, with the big playtest game we ran with our playtesters, shout out to Ben and Jeff and Christian, was like a really great, like, they're in Romania fighting basically a Dracula-like vampire, but it was very funny and Coen Brothers-esque and just goofy as hell. Like they were three old man elves, and it just felt like the weirdest story of like, they all made like the lamest guy, and that guy was such a conniving, clever, like interesting. They all ended up being very interesting, different guys, but it came from this like sort of like, how can I break this game? What's like the worst party comp, that I could go into this adventure with to fight Dracula? And they ally with like, they're playing the Ottomans versus this merchant versus the invading Russians, and it was really fun, and it felt easy to improv, and it didn't feel burdened either by sort of history or the seriousness, even though at one point it's like basically that, it's like the Russian wizards are trying to summon basically Cthulhu, and so it's like suddenly there's problems worse than a Dracula, and it was really great to end with like one of them dying in a ditch in a field alone, and it was just like such a great anticlimactic, like, it's like the end of a season of Fargo where you're like, yeah, I mean, that guy sucks. He got what he's coming to, even though he's like the main character, and you're kind of rooting for him, but you're kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. So I do think, I think it's a fun game. I think hopefully people who either and or, enjoy kind of the D&D tradition and that version of the picaresque, or who want to lean more into kind of the heist Coen Brothers stuff, or who want to really go full tilt Robin Hood, like the original game where you only get XP when you return, silver to the peasants. That's the same thing here. You have an infamy die that you can increase to become more famous or infamous by giving away money to peasants. But if you do that, if you do that, you get stuff for free. You can roll it to get things for free in town, but also the GM can roll it as a kind of encounter die. So it gets easier and easier for the guards to keep finding you because you're famous, right? They're looking for you. But I kind of like that mechanic, and I think there's probably more we're going to do as we expand and play test with like the idea of having an infamy score that really is like a social score. It's like not about you, it's like what other people think of you, which is a little different than charisma, right? And Vex is saying
sure.
it is kind of an Octo and Cthulhu. It's an alt history project at the end of the day. But again, different than Danse Macabre, and I swear we're not only going to ever do alt history, but I do think it was fun to have a big alt history project. A really big alt
All
history
history
project.
forever.
I mean, maybe we will, Chris. But then
Maybe.
have this as kind of this almost like palate cleanser thing. And again, I think we'll see what happens at PAX. But HODAG, I'm hoping we can do a nice little hardback that's got more rules, refined rules. Just I have a lot of ideas really for stories. So I'm looking right now. I'm working on a couple kind of plots, and like I always say about Danse Macabre, Chris. It's so interesting learning about the Middle Ages because I know much more about early modern, and it's like there's always some really grimy, weird tale that like you can't.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the truth is always stranger, and so I think that's true. You could probably pick any time. As you move forward, you get a lot more sources, so it's easier, I think, to pick those out. At least for me, in terms of accessible English online, in 1700 than 1400, basically. But same idea.
Yeah, sure. I mean, even just printing us makes a huge difference in terms of our sources, right? And like more modern languages, all that good stuff. Yeah. Got it. Yeah, it's
Well,
hard to source history sometimes.
Well, I mean, what was it? Just quickly to your point, though, to kind of back it up and whatever. But like you it's funny you mentioned Dracula because it's like, isn't Dracula like the party that eventually goes after Dracula? It's like somebody's British boyfriend,
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
suitor, cowboy guy. Where they're just like, here's three weirdos and an old kook. Let's go get them, boys. And it's like, yeah, it's it kind of lends itself to that. But I feel like if we do get the chance to expand this out a little bit, big shout out Tony, +1 to EXP. I think that we're going to do well with this book. I've got a good feeling about it, and I've had good feelings in the past about several projects, including Barkeep. So like, shout out Birdman, but like, it's one of those things where it's like, if we get a chance to do this more, I completely missed the thing where I could do, oh brother, where art thou? Just with, yeah, I was like, I completely missed that. So that's a touchstone that's going to appear if I get the
yeah.
chance to
No,
work
but
in the space more.
I also
Yeah.
think it's fun to maybe ask other people, and we're at 8 o'clock, and we can talk more about this. We'll have to have you back on, HODAG, and we'll definitely have to talk more about PICARO.
Oh,
Hopefully, we can
definitely. I'd love to.
announce a
I'd
little
bring me
more.
back anytime. Yeah.
Awesome,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd love to have like I know you wrote a really fun like A6 like miniature supplement for Death Game that was like a very HODAG vibe, kind of art and writing thing that was very different in the main book in some ways, but also kind of made sense with it. And it might be fun to do something like that with PICARO, where there's a couple different takes on kind of what, like I said, the different sort of subgenres or interpretations of
Oh,
doing the Picaresque. But hey, it's a RPG, right? It's not actually reading. Even Quixote, when you look back at it, it's like, what is Don Quixote? I mean, it's 500 pages. It's enormous, and most of it is really boring. The good parts are really good, and you can kind of just ignore the long asides where it's like, let me tell you this sort of rom com in the middle for no reason about two kings you've never met somewhere else in Spain. You could just skip it and go to the next weird picaresque bit. But so I feel like that's what I like about these genres is you quickly find they're actually because they're collections of tropes. Ultimately, they're like have lots of little other genres incipient kind of like mutating within them. So I'm kind of curious to see like what are some versions of this game that could be fun. I will say just mechanically I didn't describe very much about it. It is similar to Stillfleet or Danse Macabre or Blister Critters, but deadlier because you have wounds and you have a set number of wounds and it's usually small, and there's guns, and guns do a lot of damage. So like you often can just die in one hit. As a character, as a PC, you don't necessarily die. You can kind of have a hero like save. But NPCs will generally die if you shoot them. So it's not like a game where there's a lot of crunchy combat. It's much more like, do you want smoke, right? Like if there's 4 guards with muskets and there's 3 Picaros with horse pistols, it's more like who has the nerve to draw and shoot and how good their aim is, and you might get like one roll in that combat, and you might want to use a power like it matters a lot more than to have a power that lets you get away instantly by burning grit. Because in Stillfleet, it's like, oh, I get away, I didn't suffer 6 damage, I'm fine. I'm a space marine, right? In this game, it's like 6 damage. That's all your health. Like you're dead. So in that sense, it was also trying to play with the grid system and make a version, really to test a version that feels more realistic in that sense. Even though there's magic and elves, it's just like, yeah, man. I mean, if you get shot with a smoothbore, like large caliber weapon at short range, like there's no medicine. Like what do you? There's no one who can save you. Maybe if there's a witch around, she can save you, or they can save you. So that's one thing. There's the infamy die. There's a few other things, but again, a lot of it was just like, let's take things that seem to be working, boil them down, do a shorter version of a grid system game, and see if Plus One XP's audience likes it. See if this genre, is interesting to folks. And yeah, Hodag, thanks again. It was really nice working with you and kind of chatting through your thoughts on the whole thing. So I'll shut up about that.
Oh yeah.
Hodag,
No. Hey, and also thank you for shouting out Assault on Castle von Glaum, my thing that was heavily based off of the Marvel Secret Wars toys line and the Marvel superheroes toys line that I loved as a kid. I'm a DC guy, but I loved that toy line as a kid, and I thought that and the Superpowers line, of course, were great. But I was like, if we're doing Death Game, we got to do, and also too, I think that like I've been trying to work on. A lot of times, I'll come up with ideas of like, how can I make this game? And I already had everything built out for it, and they were like, we needed, 12 Pins was like, we needed something else to fill in, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I was like, they're like, we want to do a Constantina. What is that called? A Constantina or Concertina?
Right. Like a
Concertina,
little
yeah, Concertina, like the accordion. Yeah.
Right.
Accordion style, right? Yeah. So they were like, we want to do that, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do a superhero thing. I actually had another, like, I already had that idea. I had it mostly written out, and I was like, well, we can just put, we'll put this over here. Also, when you were talking about, doing different time periods, I was like, I already have a Oh Brother Where Art Thou thing called Over the Tracks that would work perfectly for PICARO. So we can talk about that later. But like, I'm so jazzed. My head's already buzzing with this. But it was awesome. Are we? Is there anything from the chat where you said that there were?
So we never got to
kind of.
We never got to Vex's original question from the very beginning. Vex had 3 questions after we talked about the Midwest for like the first 10 minutes.
Sure.
And then, so let's do these, and then Hodag, if you have any final thoughts, and then Chris will end with traditional ending. Question 1, what is the Midwest? Question 2, have you ever robbed a train on a horse? Question 3, have you ever robbed a horse on a train? So take that how you want.
Last two questions, no and no. I've ridden on a horse twice, both where I felt bad for the horse. Obviously, being the size of the horse was not helpful to the horse. So it was a bad situation for them. It was a bad situation for me. I did ride a couple of carousels as a child that I really enjoyed. The Midwest, of course, is your Great Lakes states. So that is going to be Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois. And then the Great Plains states, which are Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and the Dakotas. So there are 12 Midwestern states.
Well, you got where does Iowa fit in there? Because I lived in Iowa, and we always considered ourselves quite Midwestern.
I was Plains because it doesn't. I'm sorry, I did not mean to skip over the Iwegians.
How dare you miss the great state of Iowa? I am the heartland of the prairie.
I am eternally grateful to the great people of Dyersville, Iowa, where the AMT Myrtle plant was. Big shout out also to the Field of Dreams field, but Dyersville, Iowa is one of my favorite places on earth. Rest in peace, Country Junction Eatery. You were killed by COVID, and I will never forgive the world for that. But yeah, no, Dyersville is definitely also Duluth, or not Duluth, Dubuque, one of my all-time favorite cities. Although big shout out Duluth and Superior, 2 great cities that taste great together. But yeah, Dyersville is one of my all-time favorite places. And the next trip I take up through there, I'm going to be stopping at Riverside and pay my respects to the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk. But I mess heavily with Iowa. I definitely am a fan. So sorry for skipping over Iowa.
No, that's all anyone.
You don't need to apologize for that.
Yeah,
we're gonna get canceled by the state of Iowa somehow. We'll find this.
Please,
game chat show.
The Norwegians are good people for the most part. So.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Hodag, if you want to say any final, what you have going on, anything you want people to do other than subscribe to your Instagram, which is great, go to your blog and read and look at your amazing art there, Itch, if they do fucks with Itch still, you have some stuff up, and you're not hard to find because your work is in a lot of games. So indirectly, by supporting PICARO, and also, obviously the big one being His Majesty the Worm, we love Death Game. You've worked on so many games, we could be here all night listing Midwestern states and games that you've worked on. But what do you want people to work on? What are you working on now? How can people support
Okay.
you?
I've actually moved into unprompted, just because I've moved into the wargaming space. So big shout out to Battle Cry, Warrior Poet Games, and then also Flames of Orion, the mech game. I've been working on both of those recently. I've been big shout out to the people from the Hive Scum podcast. And Steve from the Hive Scum podcast brought me in, and I've been doing Flames of Orion based on my work of also the Traveler supplements that I'm working on with Arcane Sword Press. Right now, we just did a follow up to Heavy Metal, and I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering what it's called. It's like Space Truckers, basically. I might just be called Space Truckers, I think. But anyways, it's basically stuff for Traveler. I've been working on that stuff. I've been working on a couple other different projects. But right now, if you want Kingdomites, Brutal Frontier, that is my current zine. You can hit me up at hodagmag@gmail.com. The subject line, Get Brutal, and say, I want to get brutal. And then I'll send you my pitch. If you like it and you send me $20, I will send the zines in PDF format to you. And if you do it in the next week or so, I've got the Balloids, which is based off of the goofy meteor orbs toy line that they like attached on to the Motu line for no reason. I was like, I got to do a Balloids like extra like thing on there, so that's going to be included. But yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much it. And if you need artwork, I like to provide artwork at very reasonable prices, I'm told. You get your whole game illustrated for $500, and that includes just a bunch of different stuff. So hit me up. I also have packages starting at $10. So I will draw something for you if you ask. But yeah, that's pretty much it. HODAG RPG on pretty much all socials. I kind of slowed down my Instagram stuff, but I'll be on there a lot in October. We're doing Pokemon BX2. So that's coming out this year.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
I did some Johto stuff. I'm a 151 guy. Like Kanto, obviously Kanto region is the only. I was too old when Pokemon
gotta
came
go
out
Kanto.
already. But yeah, it's so fun because now I'm learning about all these different Pokemon, and instead of rolling my eyes, I'm like leaning into it, and being like, okay, like what is Rotom? What is Spiel last year? Shout out Marsha from Traverse Fantasy. I was like, what would you? I'm going to do a Fantastic Medieval Campaigns one. What do you? And she's like Spiel, and I was like, got it. So, but yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff, and I'm finishing up some of the project or stuff that I started last year. So you'll get to see like the evolutions that were missed. So, anyways, Pokemon BX2 coming out in October. But yeah, other than that, that's where you can find me online. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on there too much. So please, if you see me posting it, 4 a.m. nonsense, be like, hey, you should be working on other things. So,
or sleeping, one or the other,
or
whatever you.
No, I'm a vampire. So like, I literally like I sleep all day and work all night. So,
it always comes back to vampires now.
It really does. It's spooky season.
Really does.
It's extended spooky season. Ooh. September, October, November.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I'm so ready. I'm so ready. Autumn cannot come soon enough. I'm being metamorpho this year for Halloween. So shout out James Gunn, Superman
Nice.
2025. But yeah, I'm very excited. So
awesome. Well, Chris, any last words before we call it an evening?
My only last words are get brutal, and do not forget the 3 fundamental F's, which are food, fun, and farts.
Excellent. So follow HODAG, check out PICARO, check out Danse Macabre by Christopher Pickett. HODAG RPG, right. Thank you so much for joining us. Taylor Vex in the chat, thank you so much for your insights, questions, and quips. And as usual, it's why we roll, and we'll be back very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.